If you've ever been to northern Thailand, there's this city called Chiang Mai. It's an old city, calm, quiet, and surrounded by mountains. People go there to escape the noise, to breathe the air that smells like rain and pine trees. Just behind that city, there's this mountain called Doi Suthep. It's not very far, maybe 30 minutes from the city center, but once you start to drive up, it feels like a completely different world. The road twists and turns through the forest with tall trees on both sides and mist that never seems to go away during the winter. During the day, it's very beautiful. You will see the golden temple on the top of the mountain shining in the sunlight. You will hear monks chanting, tourists laughing, and smell of grilled food from the little stalls by the road. But after midnight, everything changes. The road goes quiet, there is no light, no people, only the sound of your tires echoing through the trees. Sometimes fog rolls in so thick you cannot even see the curve ahead. Locals say the fog up there is not just the weather. They say it's the mountain breathing, and when it breathes, things that used to live here comes out to wander on the road again. Some people have seen shadows walking alongside the road. Others hear voices calling their name from somewhere deep in the forest. But most people never talk about it. They just speed up a little and pretend they didn't see anything. This story is about a man named Arun. One night, he drove down Doi Suthep alone. He was not curious, he was not daring, and he was not certainly looking for ghosts. He just wanted to go home. However, the mountain had other plans for him. So the story starts with Arun. Arun had always liked quiet places. Whenever the city felt too loud or too crowded, he would drive up the Doi Suthep just to sit and look at the lights below. It made him feel calm. That night, it was no different. He had finished work late and eaten a quick dinner and decided to go for a drive before heading home. The weather was cold and the air up the mountain was fresh and still. He parked near the viewpoint and watched Chiang Mai glowing far beneath him. From up there, the streets looked peaceful, like little rivers of light running between the buildings. Time passed faster than he expected. The wind grew colder and the temple lights on the mountain went out one by one. When he checked his phone, it was already past midnight. He figured it was time to go home. He started his car and the sound of the engine broke the silence that hung over the forest. The fuel level was sitting close to empty, but he thought he could make it to the gas station at the bottom of the hill. He took a deep breath, rolled down the window halfway down, and began the slow drive down towards the city. The road was narrow and quiet. There were no cars coming up or down, and the air felt colder as he descended. The only sound came from his tires touching the damp pavement. To stay awake, Arun turned on the ghost radio, the late-night call-in show that he sometimes listened to during long drives. People were telling stories about strange things that they had seen or heard, voices in their homes, footsteps in empty rooms, and faces in mirrors. It sounded like nonsense, but in that silence, even nonsense felt real. As the road twisted through the forest, thin waves of fog began to form. They rolled across the pavement and drifted through the trees, glowing softly in the beam of his headlights. Arun lowered the window again and felt the cold air brush against his face. It smelled like rain and pine wood. Everything felt calm. He had the road all to himself and the forest around him, and the city was waiting below. Then, just ahead, a small yellow light appeared through the mist. It flickered gently by the roadside, like a lamp or a fire. As he drove closer, he realized it was a food stall. Someone was still awake on the mountain that night. Arun slowed the car as he approached the small light by the roadside. It was a food stall, a simple wooden cart with a roof made out of tin and a single light bulb hanging above it. He was surprised to see anyone still open at that hour. He pulled over and stepped out. The ground felt damp beneath his shoes and the night was completely still. Behind the counter stood an old man stirring something in a pot. The man looked up as Arun walked closer. Late drive, huh? The man said. Yeah, Arun replied with a smile. I was just coming down from the viewpoint and thought I would grab a snack before heading home. The man nodded slowly. He didn't say much after that. Arun ordered a bowl of noodles and waited quietly while the man prepared it for him. He noticed there was no other customers. No sounds of insects, no other sounds and lights around. Just this stall standing alone beside the empty road. When the man finally handed him the bowl, he spoke again, this time in a low and steady voice. Do not stop your car, no matter what. Arun looked at him, unsure if he had heard correctly. What do you mean? He asked, but the man didn't answer. He turned away and began to clean the counter as if the conversation was already over. Arun decided not to press him further. He finished his bowls of noodles quickly and left the money on the counter and walked back to his car. Before getting in, he glanced over his shoulder and the man was still standing there, looking down at something in his hands. Arun decided to start the engine as his headlight swept across the stall one last time. The light inside flickered once and went out. He blinked, surprised. When his eyes adjusted, there was nothing but empty roadside. The stall, the man, the light, all gone. Arun hesitated for a moment, staring at the spot where the stall had been. Then he shook his head, telling himself he must have imagined it, and continued down the mountain. Arun drove back onto the main road and began his descent again. The air felt colder now and the mist had grown thicker. He turned the radio on again, hoping for some company during the long drive. The ghost radio was still playing. A caller was describing how he had once heard footsteps following him at night. The man's voice faded in and out as the static filled the car. Arun twisted the dial, trying to get a clearer signal, but every channel sounded broken. After a while, he gave up and left it in the background noise. The sound of the static was strangely comforting, like white noise keeping him awake. He focused on the road ahead, counting each curve to measure how far he was from the city. Then, through the static, he heard something else. It was not a part of the show. It was softer and closer, and it came from behind him. At first, he thought it was just the radio picking up another voice, but when he turned the volume down, the sound was still there. It was a whisper, faint, broken, almost like someone saying his name. He glanced at the backseat through the mirror, but there was nothing there. Only darkness and the faint glow up from the dashboard lights. He shook his head and turned to the radio and decided to turn it off completely. For a moment, the car was silent again. Then the whisper came back. It was clearer this time, low and uneven, right next to his ear. And then, just after that, a short laugh. Arun's hand tightened around the steering wheel. He pressed harder on the accelerator, telling himself it was just the sound of the wind. But when he looked ahead, he realized the fog had grown thicker, so dense that he could barely see the next curve. He slowed down and leaned forward, trying to stay focused on the road. The audio was still off, but he could hear the faint hum of static again, floating through the silence like it never left. And somewhere between the static and the wind, he thought he heard it. A quiet voice, low and distant, whispering his name again. As the road curved sharply to the left and through the fog, Arun noticed something ahead. There was a small wooden pavilion by the roadside, the kind locals call a sala. It had a roof, a few benches inside, and an old lamp hanging near one of the posts. The light flickered weakly, glowing just enough to show a shape standing inside. It looked like a person. They were not moving. They were just standing there, facing the road as if waiting for someone to pass. Arun slowed down a little, unsure if he should stop. He told himself it was probably just a traveler resting for the night. But as his headlights brushed across the sala, the figure didn't move or turn at all. It was completely still. He kept driving, and the fog swallowed the light behind him and the road curved again, and for a moment he felt relief that it was over. Then, a few minutes later, another light appeared through the mist, the same weak glow in the same spot beside the road. As he got closer, he realized it was not another pavilion. It was the same one, the same sala, the same flickering lamp, and the same shadow standing inside. Arun's chest tightened. He knew he had not turned around, and there was only one road down the mountain, and he had been driving straight the whole time. But somehow, the mountain road had folded back on itself and bringing him past the same spot again. He gripped the steering wheel a little tighter and focused on the lines of the road ahead. He told himself he must be tired, that maybe the fog was playing tricks on his eyes, but deep down he knew what he saw had not changed. The sala, the lamb, and the figure were exactly the same, like they had been waiting for him to come back. He took a deep breath, looked straight ahead and kept driving. As the fog grew heavier the further he went, it floated across the road in thick white bands, and at times it felt like the car was sinking into the fog. Arun leaned forward again, trying to see through the haze, but even with the headlights on high beam, the view ahead was only a blur of pale gray. He kept both hands on the steering wheel and focused on the center line. The air inside the car felt colder than before, almost damp. He rubbed his arm, thinking it was just the mountain chill, and turned off the air conditioning. But the cold didn't go away. A strange feeling started to grow at the back of his mind. It was quiet but heavy, like the air before the storm. And then he felt it, the sense that someone else was in the car with him. He didn't see anything at first. It was just a presence, something faint but undeniable, sitting beside him in the passenger seat. It was not sudden. It was as if it had been there for a while, waiting for him to notice. Arun's eye flickered through the windshield. In the faint reflection of the glass, he could make out a shape next to him, darker than the darkness around it. It was a figure, sitting perfectly still, its outline faint but human. His heart began to pound, and he didn't turn his head. He couldn't. He just kept his eye fixed on the road and tried to breathe steadily. Then, slowly, in the corner of his eyes, the figure moved. Its head turned inch by inch until it faced him. There was no face, no features, only a deep shadow where a face should have been. It was sitting there, still, watching him driving. And then suddenly, a sound came next. It was not a scream or a whisper anymore, but a low, broken laugh, dry and uneven, like the air escaping through the cracked throat. It came right beside him, close enough that he could feel it against his ear. Arun's grip on the steering wheel tightened until his hands hurt. He pressed his foot down on the accelerator and, desperate to go away, the car surged forward, its headlights cutting through the fog. He didn't look. He just drove, focusing on the road ahead until his vision blurred. And then, when he finally gathered the courage to glance sideways, the seat was empty. The passenger was gone. Only the seatbelt hung loose, swaying gently, clicking softly against the door as the car moved. After a while, the fog began to thin, and Arun could finally see a faint orange glow far below, where the city lights of Chiang Mai were scattered across the valley. He let out a long breath, relieved that he was almost back. The car's engine sounded normal again and the air inside no longer felt as cold. He glanced at the clock on the dashboard. It was nearly 2 in the morning. He was relieved, to say the least. He smiled a little to himself, thinking that maybe everything that had just happened was only in his mind. He was tired, and that was all. But as he looked back at the road, something felt wrong. The direction of the painted lines was off. The reflectors on the ground were facing the other way, and for a moment, it didn't make sense. And then it hit him. He was driving down the uphill lane. His heart jumped. He jerked the wheel to the left, trying to correct the car position before another vehicle came around a curve. The tires screeched on the wet pavement and the road stayed empty. He slowed down and tried to steady his breathing. The fog had almost disappeared now. He could see clearly behind him in the rearview mirror, and that was when he froze. The same Sala stood by the side of the road again, and the same flicker lammed above it. The same shadow stood there, right at the edge, facing the car as it moved away. It didn't chase or wave. It only stood there, perfectly still, with its head turned toward him. Arun looked straight ahead and didn't glance back again. He kept his eye on the road and hands gripping the wheel and drove until he reached the base of the mountain. When Arun finally reached the bottom of the mountain, the road straightened out and the trees gave way to open land. He saw the glow of a small gas station ahead and pulled in immediately. The engine had been running almost on fumes, and his hands were shaking still slightly as he parked the car beside the pump. The young attendant came out from the office, rubbing his eyes as if he had just woken up. Arun rolled down the window and tried to smile, though his voice trembled a little when he spoke. "Could you please fill it up?" The attendant nodded and decided to start pumping the gas. After a moment, he looked at Arun and said, "You came down from Doi Suthep, didn't you?" Arun nodded. "Yeah, I shouldn't have stayed that late. The fog up there was terrible tonight." The attendant frowned slightly. "What do you mean, fog? There was not any fog up there this night. The sky had been clear since the evening." Arun stared at him confused. He turned in his seat to look back at the mountain, expecting to see the same gray haze rolling over the slopes. But there was none. The peak stood clear under the sunlight and sharp and quiet against the sky. He didn't say anything after that. He just paid for the gas, thanked the attendant and drove off towards the city. But the whole way home, he kept glancing at the passenger seat beside him, half afraid to see the outline of someone sitting there again. Arun never told anyone the full story of what happened that night. When people asked why he stopped driving up Doi Suthep, he only said that he preferred the city now. But sometimes, when he thinks about it, he realized there were still things that don't make sense. He remembers the food stall, the smell of the noodles and the sound of the old man's voice and how real it felt. But when the light flickered and went out and the stall was gone without a trace, no sign of table, no sign of anything at all. Who was that man? Why was he still opening at that hour, alone on this empty mountain road? And why did he tell Arun not to stop the car? Was he warning him? Or was he a part of whatever was waiting down the mountain? Then there was the fog, the thick, heavy mist that followed him the whole way down. The gas station attendant said that there was no fog that night. So what did Arun drive through for almost an hour? Was it just a weather or something else moving with him, covering the road so no one else could see? And what about the Sala, the small wooden pavilion that appeared again and again on the same stretch of road? Was it really there? Every time he remembers it, he still sees the shape of the person standing inside, watching quietly as his car passed by. Maybe it was all just a dream. Maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe the mountain had its own way of showing people what it wants them to see. Whatever it was, Arun never drive down that road again. He says he doesn't need to because once was enough. And sometimes when he looked forward towards the mountain from the city at night, he still sees a faint light flickering up far the slope, like a stall waiting for its next traveler to stop. The mountain forgets nothing, and sometimes it lets you leave, but not before showing you who else will never leave. And that is the end of the story. I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you all in the next story. Thank you.